Hello, everyone. This is Rick, and welcome to Astral Club. This is my responses to questions that you guys ask about the Gray Alien Council Answers My Questions episode. You came up with some great questions, and so I really feel I should answer them in an episode, and I think a lot of people will benefit from it and perhaps enjoy it. Before I get into that, though, real quick, just want to mention Patreon. Anybody who wants to support the work of Astral Club and spreading the information about astral projection, you can certainly help us out by joining Patreon. And when you do that, you get advanced episodes on Sunday. You get a library of downloaded episodes for your podcast app. And of course, there's a Patreon email where you can ask questions and we can talk back and forth. And if you're interested, there is a link in the description. Next up, private lessons. I really enjoy doing these because it gives me a chance to talk one-on-one with people. And they get a chance to, in a comfortable, safe environment, share a lot of their experiences and some of their traumas with me in a confidential manner, things that they wouldn't discuss necessarily in an open forum. So I really feel that that not only do they benefit from it, but I benefit from it as well, and I enjoy helping people in any way that I can. It doesn't necessarily just have to be astral projection. At any rate, if you are interested in a private lesson, there is an email in the description, and I'll send you the information. Okay, you ask some great questions, and so I think I owe everyone an episode here where I talk about these questions. I also want to quickly mention, I forgot, Victoria Suarez is a new patron. She's an astral scout. Keese, or Kise, is an astral ascended. Thank you very much. And Yellow Minnow is an astral scout, and they're all new Patreon members. And I keep on forgetting to do a shout out, so I'm glad I remembered. Okay, so the questions, comments, let's discuss it. Ashton, the Gmod Addict 3620, don't ask me to say that 3 times fast, said, I always enjoy episodes with the Grays. Thank you, Rick. And a lot of people gave thumbs up to that. So it's obviously something that people are interested in, not just me. Untethered Consciousness asked a good question. I just want to mention that he has a great channel. I've done a couple interviews with him. He has a lot of good interviews with a wide variety of psychic phenomena, including NDEs and a wide variety of other things that might be of interest. So check out Untethered Consciousness. Okay, he says, great episode, Rick. It makes me wonder if there are other human ambassadors like yourself operating on the astral plane. I can't say that I've personally met any on the astral plane, but I'm sure there's others that are interacting with the Greys on the astral. I just don't know about it. And certainly there are people like Whitley Strieber, for instance, who wrote the book Communion, which I remember when I bought that when it first came out in hardback, and it had this cover with a huge picture of a gray alien on the cover, and it triggered the heck out of me. I remember I had to take the cover off so I could read the book. So there's people out there. Now he did it in the physical, but I'm sure there's others out there. I'm not the only one. It's just I'm the one that I don't know, maybe broadcasting some of these interactions in a way that you can listen to them on YouTube. You know, I'm sure there's plenty of others who are just doing it privately, or maybe Whitley Strieber, for instance, writes a book. Others have written books. So yes, I'm sure there's others out there. I just haven't bumped into them as of yet. Let's see here. Another question from Signum Eternus. It's a very interesting episode, Rick, especially about the nukes causing time-space disruption. It reminds me that in the past I've heard that nuclear weapons can cause damage to the soul. Is there truth in that? Now, I always say I like to talk from personal experience. Well, I'm proud to say I don't have personal experience of being caught up in a nuclear explosion, and I'm extremely thankful for that lack of experience. However, I do remember hearing in the Astral years ago in some sort of conversation. I don't remember the context, but I was speaking with some guides, and they mentioned that I was asking about the healing plane, and we got on the topic of the nuclear blasts that occurred at the end of World War II in Hiroshima and Nagasaki. And they shared that those souls required a lot of extra healing on the astral to fully recover and reintegrate their soul matrix. So I think that's another crime of nuclear weapons, is that they extend their damage. Most weapons just kill the physical body, but they don't affect the soul matrix. The nuclear weapons, because of their harnessing of the atom and using it in the universe's one of the universe's most destructive powers, that and I think the electromagnetic pulse that is generated probably does a good amount of damage too, because of the weird electromagnetic nature of the astral body. At any rate, yes, damage is done, and they have to spend a lot of extra time on the healing plane to allow for their reintegration of their soul matrix. Roddy Rich 15 said, Joe Rogan has to get you on his podcast, Rick. I agree. If anybody knows Joe Rogan or has an in, I'd appreciate a good word. I'd love to go on his show because I love his show. Okay, another question. Chris A. 4985 said, hi, Rick, very interesting video. I was wondering a few semi-related things while listening to this episode. What's the name for the grays that they use? For instance, they obviously don't call themselves the grays. I simply refer to them as that because everybody understands what I'm talking about who knows anything about aliens when I mention the Greys. They do have a name for themselves, and they told me it once. There's really no English translation that I can possibly produce that would come anywhere close to what they call themselves. It's like a long series of proper nouns and semi-musical word type notes. I seriously doubt that a human vocal cord could pronounce it, even if you tried. So yes, they do have obviously a name for themselves, but it's nothing that I can translate into anything approaching English with any degree of accuracy whatsoever. Next question. This is from Anthony Logan, 8899. Love the Gray episodes. I remember you mentioned in a previous episode that they had deatomizer type weapons, disintegration, call it whatever you like. Do you think the Greys have large-scale weapons more powerful than nukes? I answered that I really don't know much about their weapons capabilities because that's not the type of question that a diplomatic ambassador would really be asking, because you would think it's a sensitive issue, and it's something that really is none of my business, quite frankly. However, let's reason things out here a little bit, and I think we can come to a conclusion. They are able to master a process whereby they can travel effectively faster than light. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean they're traveling in normal space faster than light. Obviously, they are traveling in a different way, probably manipulating electromagnetic fields, dimensions, what have you. But in order to do that, they must use extremely powerful energy sources in order to move large spacecraft, because the ones that we usually see here on Earth are typically the scout craft, which are manned by, say 3 Greys. But the motherships are enormous. Some people have reported seeing what they believe is a mothership, and the thing was a couple football fields, or maybe a couple soccer fields, or whatever you want to call it, long. So they're enormous ships that they're able to move through space-time. So it stands to reason that they have mastered enormous energies. And if we've learned anything, that certainly here on Earth, as soon as we master some new energy source, we find a way to turn it into a weapon. After all, the only reason we have rockets and satellites today is because of the early rocketry experiments that were done by Goddard here in America, but then they were mastered by the Germans in World War II. And billions of Reichsmarks were spent in turning this new technology into a weapon. And of course, we've got nuclear energy, and we also have nuclear weapons. So, it stands to reason that if they wanted to, they could certainly use those powerful energies for a more destructive purpose than traveling essentially faster than light to arrive here at Earth and other destinations. So I would say that the answer to that question would most likely be yes. And whether they have actually developed it and have it ready for use, I don't know. But the fact of the matter is if they've got the science, they've got the ability. So, it's probably best to assume that they have powerful weapons available to them, should they be of an inclination to develop them and or use them. Okay, what's next? Okay, here's a good question. This is by Freak, FREQ 632. It said, Rick, did you mention that in the past that the Greys find Earth's nighttime interesting and even a little scary? The question here is, why would creatures with such large eyes who live underground find darkness, in quotes, alien, no pun intended, especially when their biology allows excellent night vision? You're absolutely correct. What they find curious about it and why they're a little uneasy about it is that on their planet, they're in a binary system. Very rarely is there ever anything approaching complete darkness on their planet. So it's just something that's a little, you might say, unnerving to them, that this darkness comes on a regular basis. And for them, a complete darkness of their planet would be, 100 times more rare than our total solar eclipses. So it's just something that they're just not used to. And so, I mean, it's nothing that's frightening them away. It's something that they've noted that they find is a bit unnerving. So I think that's a pretty good answer. Okay, longtime Astral Club member Kip Road asks, Rick, the next time you meet the Greys, could you ask them if they can communicate in real time between their home world and Earth? I actually have encountered some information about this just as I was asking other questions. They have something that is a kind of a carrier wave that travels like their base ships do. And I believe there's instrumentation involved. You might say it's kind of like a tiny spacecraft, and that it relays the messages between their home planet and Earth. And it travels at an effective faster than light communication, but it's not instantaneous. It takes the same amount of time that it takes them to get here. And the closest that I've ever been able to get to an answer, because they're really iffy on our way that we measure time. I mean, they're such brilliant beings, but they really struggle with our way of keeping time. At any rate, I think it takes them around 10 of our months to travel from their planet to Earth using their varieties of energies and methods of traveling. So no, it's not instantaneous. You might say it probably takes around 10 months. So there's quite a bit of independence that is granted to the motherships and the commanders within an overall philosophical and strategic framework. Because no, there is no instantaneous communication. White Camry asks, are the Greys curious or even aware that we don't have their soul conscious identity transferability? Yes, they're very aware that we don't have that ability. So, okay, we have a question here from Jacobus Bell 7402. It's always interesting hearing about alien technology. I remember an episode where you mentioned that they tried explaining cold fusion and other difficult concepts, technical concepts, scientific concepts, that just, this person says, didn't translate. Yeah, translation is a problem. Also, my level of scientific understanding is woefully inadequate to meet the challenge here. But the question is there any tech that would be easier to communicate that we can make use of? This is something that is very frustrating for me. I wish that perhaps I was someone like Nikola Tesla or Einstein or some cutting-edge quantum physicist, somebody who would at least have a prayer of understanding some of this. Their tech is tens of thousands of years ahead of ours. Imagine if I landed a fighter jet in the year 1000. I mean, I could easily say the Stone Age, but let's not even go to the Stone Age. Let's go to the year 1000 in Europe. You're right now, you're in the medieval period. People are riding around on horses, living in thatched houses, conducting their little wars with arrows and spears and swords and wearing armor. And you land a modern fighter jet. Heck, let's call it a stealth fighter jet. Maybe it went through some time portal and it lands in 1000 AD. Now, let's say I was an expert on everything that made this jet possible, from propulsion to guidance and navigation and everything involved in the construction of it, including the use of alloys that don't exist in this time. And I try to explain to them how this craft works, how it's powered, how it flies. They wouldn't understand, because our technology, like anyone's technology, is typically built step by step. Now, occasionally you'll have a visionary who is able to go from point A to point Z. But for the most part, our technology is built in steps. We go from step to step to step, from progress to progress to progress, from invention to improvement to better improvement, what have you, cheaper, better, faster, smaller, for instance. But imagine trying to explain to an illiterate peasant, or even a noble who probably can't read either, by the way, not in 1000 AD. Basically, you had to be a monk in order to be able to read back then. How the heck would I explain to them how this technology works? And that's the same struggle that I'm faced with. Although, quite frankly, I think if you wanted to use me as an example, then we should probably go back to the Stone Age and try explaining to a family living in a cave, worrying about getting eaten by animals at night, how an advanced stealth fighter jet works. It's impossible. And unfortunately, I am faced with a similar situation, because all of their technology is based off of their advances. Heck, how many of us even know how an iPhone works or an Android phone? Yet we all use them. But I'll bet you, if I corralled 100 people with a smartphone and I said, okay, how do you build this thing that you're holding? They'd look at me like I had two heads. And here they are. They're members of our society, and they have no clue how our technology works. So what prayer do I have? Someone with a business degree, spent his life in business. What prayer do I have of understanding scientific advancements tens of thousands of years in advance of ours? It's irritating, it's frustrating, but it is what it is. Next question is PR Soldier. Another great video. They had a question, though. I'm sure you're aware of the Bob Lazar and his disclosures. And are his drawings of the UAPs accurate? As far as Scoutcraft are concerned, they look pretty accurate to me. Number 2, why don't you sketch what you saw? I'm not being modest here when I tell you that I don't have artistic ability. My artistic triumph was in 2nd grade when I made a brontosaurus out of clay pencil holder. That's literally the crowning achievement in the area of art for yours truly. Quite frankly, I think Bob Lazar's drawings are better than anything that I could do on my best day. You're stuck with me describing things in the good old-fashioned English language. I apologize, but you don't want to play with me in Pictionary because I just can't draw. I have the image in my mind, but something goes haywire by the time it gets down to my hand. So I'm sorry, but it is what it is. Let's see what's next here. Aponix asks, Rick, what is your opinion of the Serpo story? That's SERPO. This was a story that was released some years ago, and it purported that there was an exchange program where we sent some human astronauts. I think the number was 12. I don't remember. It was years ago I read this. And that they went to the Greys' home planet and had some adventures there. And some came back, some died, some stayed. I was able to confirm that no such exchange has ever taken place. This was a disinformation story that was released. There's some facts that are mixed in, as there always are with disinformation stories. But this is not true in the form that it was presented. I'm unaware of any humans that have ever physically traveled to the Greys planet. Okay, we have some questions from Plectrum Dust 6871. About the Greys, is this implant the same or part of the smartphone-sized device that they use to stay connected and detect radiation, or is this different? They're referring to there's a small implant in the Greys' brains that is used to telepathically navigate their craft, which is why there isn't lots of buttons and dials and things like that, like you might see in Star Trek. It's not smartphone sized, though. It's literally the size of a BB. If you've ever seen a BB, for BB guns, it's a teeny little gold BB with teeny little wires coming out of it. That's what they use in conjunction with their brain waves to actually communicate with their ship and to guide it to where they want it to be. Let's see here. They ask another question. When the Grey Council separated from the U.S. government, did they mean, okay, basically what they're asking here is what level are the Greys still communicating with us? There still is a basic agreement, which was for the exchange of having a small scientific base with some genetic studies here on Earth in exchange for some help that the Greys provided us. However, we wanted a lot more from them, and in exchange for a really deep cooperation and a really sharing of technologies, or at least some technologies, and to certainly help them decipher the craft that we now hold. When we turned down their request for us and everyone here on Earth to get rid of the nuclear weapons, they pulled back. And they're no longer conducting the genetic tests either. They've been put to a stop. Although, as I mentioned previously, there's still one element that may still be conducting these tests because they're loyal to the old council, and the new council hasn't been able to bring them to heel yet, you might say. So there still is some contact, but it's not in depth because of our unwillingness to get rid of these harmful nuclear weapons. Fornello123 asks, do they have a sense of humor, the Greys? Do they do music, play, art, etc.? I believe I described some of this when in one of my visits to what you might call their kind of rest and relaxation building. They really love watching what we might call nature specials. And they had nature specials playing on some sort of device that casts things into a very realistic 3D environment. So it was like that area was the actual natural area of whatever the planet was. I saw some Earth scenes. I saw some other scenes that I don't believe were Earth. They really love looking at the nature, the plants and the animals. They're very much interested in that end of things. They do enjoy a type of music which sounded atonal to me. It didn't sound like something that would be considered music, at least to my ears. If I'd had ears, I guess I was sensing it in an astral way, so I got the vibrations of it. But I don't know if they do art. As far as playing, I did see them playing a game that I tried to understand what the rules were, but I didn't understand what it was. I do know though that at times they would all laugh, and it sounded curious because it sounded kind of like a high pitched tittering type of thing. And I had no idea why they were laughing because, like I said, I didn't understand the rules of the game. But it seemed like everybody was having fun. It didn't seem like there was a loser or a winner. It seemed more like, my impression was a team effort, and they found some of these things funny. I don't know. Don't ask me to explain any more than that because that's all I got out of it. What happened? Oh, let's see here. John GG001 asked, what happened to the old Gray Council members? Did they off them? Well, that's a question. That's a heck of a question. Is that something that really an ambassador from Earth should be asking? Hey, did you waste those old council members? I have not asked that question, or I have not asked about the old council whatsoever, because quite frankly, it's none of my business. And, I've also found that it's a good idea to not ask questions that you don't want the answers to. So I think those are words to live by, perhaps. Okay, that's it. I just want to thank everyone for your great questions. I'm already way over time here. I wish I could share them all, but those are some of the ones that I think everybody found the most interesting. And if you liked this episode, please hit the like button, share it with those of like minds, subscribe if you haven't already, and 80% of you have subscribed, which is an extremely large number compared with other channels. So I'm very grateful. But if you're one of those 20%, what the heck? Hit the subscribe button. Make sure that bell is solid so you get notified of the episodes on Wednesday afternoon and also Saturday morning. And if you have any further comments or questions about this episode, any ideas that you have or things that you've heard, please share them, because everyone can benefit from them, and I always enjoy reading them as well. And as always, this is Rick, and I will see you on the astral plane.